Welcome to the UnTold Truth by Joshua Brinkley, a journey through life, resilience, and the power of the mind. My name is Joshua Brinkley, and for the first time, I'm pulling back the curtain on the experiences that have shaped me. From my childhood in Richmond, to navigating middle school and high school, to the adversity that built the man who I am today. On this podcast, we're diving into the story behind the story. You'll hear about my early years, the challenges I faced growing up, and the moments that test my character long before adulthood ever did. We'll talk about my basketball career, the passion, the discipline, the setbacks, and the lessons that the game taught me that I still carry to this very day. And then we'll go deeper. We'll explore psychology, how the mind can work for you or against you, how our thoughts can shape our reality, how trauma, pressure, and self-doubt can hold us back, and how we can rewire ourselves to break through. I'll share real moments, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Times when life wasn't pretty, times when I struggled, times when I made mistakes and had to rebuild. From my short stint of incarceration, to fighting through a misdemeanor charge, to learning who I was and who I wanted to become. And we won't stop there. We'll talk about becoming a business owner, building Richmond Therapeutic Health Services Incorporation, and the trials, failures, and victories that came with entrepreneurship. I'll share the strategies, the mindset, and the gritty reality behind building something from the ground up. This podcast is more than my biography. It's a blueprint. Every story, lesson, and reflection is designed to help someone else. Someone facing adversity, someone trying to find purpose, someone rebuilding, someone chasing greatness but battling the weight of life at the same time. If you've ever faced hardship, if you've ever fallen and had to get back up, if you want to understand your mind and unlock the strongest version of yourself, then you're in the right place. This is my story, but more importantly, this is the story that might change yours. Welcome to the UnTold Truth by Joshua Brinkley. Let's get started. Welcome back to the UnTold Truth by Joshua Brinkley. In episode 6, I talked about growth, real growth, not the flashy kind, but the kind that comes after loss, grief, and rebuilding yourself from the ground up. I talked about moving into the country, reconnecting with my roots, and finding peace in the slower pace of life. I talked about building Richmond Therapeutic Health Services into something stable, reputable, and sustainable. I talked about partnership, what it looks like to thrive along someone who is just as driven, disciplined, and focused as you are. And I talked about the comeback, how despite everything that happened, the grief, the addiction, and the transition, we didn't just survive, we stabilized. We built and we aligned. Episode 6 was about standing back up and realizing you're stronger than the season that tried to break you. And before we move forward, I want to take a pause and look back, briefly, at the first 6 chapters of the story. Episode 1 was about the beginning, who I am, where I come from, and the foundation that shaped me. It was about identity before accomplishment. Episode 2 dug deeper into upbringing, pressure, expectations, and the early lessons that taught me how to move through the world. Episode 3 addressed struggle, internal battles, mistakes, decisions that came with consequences, and it wasn't about excuses, it was about accountability. Episode 4 focused on relationships, loss, and emotional impact. The moments that changed how I trust, how I love, and how I protect myself. Episode 5 was raw. Grief, addiction, the loss of Junior Sambo, the consequences of avoiding pain, and the realization that pain doesn't disappear when ignored. It waits. And episode 6 was the rebuild, the business growth, the personal alignment, the realization that healing and leadership often happen at the same time. 6 chapters, 1 truth. Outside of Junior's passing, nothing about this journey was accidental. Which brings us to now. All of these episodes have lived in the past, but today, we live in the present. Today is January 4th, 2026, and Claire and I, we're now married. We were married on November 1st, 2025, in Destin, Florida, on Henderson Beach. Our reception was held on the Soloris yacht, and I can honestly say it was one of the best days of my life. Family was there, mostly Claire's immediate family, but also the people who have consistently shown up for me. The ones who never crossed me, the ones whose love never felt conditional. My mom was there, Bless her heart. And that was the first time she ever went to Florida. Being able to share that moment with her in one of my favorite states meant more than I could put into words. After coming back home from the wedding, we started planning our honeymoon. In April of 2026, we planned to travel to South Africa. A few years ago, Claire and I did a 23andMe. While I'm not from South Africa specifically, my roots trace back to West Africa, specifically Nigeria. I'm roughly 70% Nigerian. For us, this trip isn't just a vacation, it's a reconnection, a chance to stand on the continent where my story began. We also plan to start a family sometime in 2026. No exact dates, no rushing, just intention. Both of our mothers already have grandbaby fever, but we've always been aligned on doing things in order. We wanted to get married first, stability first, and clarity first. Today's world is more expensive, more demanding, and more complex, and responsible timelines matter. I rushed in my 20s, but in my 30s, I slowed down. These are the decisions I am making today. Decisions that make logical sense, not illogical. Claire is currently laying the groundwork for a new company called the Phthalo Green, which is an outdoor wellness experience set to open in 2027. This is her vision and her business, but I'm proud to be her backer and supporter. The plan includes outdoor saunas, cold plunges, yoga, food offerings, and water-based experiences on the property with natural land and water. This year is about zoning, licensing, property acquisition, and preparation. So when it's time to open, we do it right. On my end, I'm focused on strengthening Enrichment Therapeutic Health Services as a corporation. We're also working towards offering staff insurance benefits for long-term employees. The goals for RTHS is sustainability, longevity, and excellence. And eventually, yes, the plan is to move to Florida, or at least establish a strong presence there. That's home for me in a different way. There are a few upcoming changes with Medicaid and DBHDS licensing expected in mid-2026, and I'm preparing ahead of time. We're pursuing CARF accreditation to further solidify the business reputation. Before I finish talking about where I want to go in life, I want to be clear about something. Everything I shared from episode 1 through episode 6 wasn't just storytelling. It wasn't just reflection. It was instruction, whether you realized it or not. So let me slow this down for you and tell you what I actually want people to learn from what I've lived. Lesson 1. Your background doesn't disqualify you. From the very beginning, I talked about where I come from, my upbringing, my environment, the pressures, and the expectations. None of it was perfect, and none of it was easy. But what I want you to understand is this. Your background explains you. It does not limit you. Where you start does not dictate where you finish. It just gives you context. And once you understand your context, you could decide where you want to go, who you want to become. Lesson 2. Pain ignored always collects interest. In multiple episodes, especially episode 5, I talked about grief, addiction, and loss. I talked about what happens when you avoid pain, how it shows up later as anger, addiction, distance, or self-sabotage. Pain doesn't disappear because you don't talk about it. It waits. The lesson here is simple. Face it early or pay for it later. Either way, the bill comes due. Lesson 3. Accountability is freedom. I didn't tell these stories to make excuses for myself. I told them to take ownership. I've made mistakes. I've chosen wrong at times. I've hurt myself by not slowing down soon enough. But growth started when I stopped blaming circumstances and started correcting behavior. Accountability isn't punishment. It's freedom. Once you own it, you can change it. Lesson 4. Discipline beats motivation every time. One thing that has been consistent through every chapter is work ethic. Motivation comes and goes. Discipline stays. There were days I didn't feel like building, didn't feel like leading, didn't feel like showing up, but I did anyway. And over time, that consistency built businesses, stability, and confidence. You don't need to feel ready. You need to be willing. Lesson 5. Love is built, not rushed. Through relationships, transitions, and eventually marriage, one thing became clear to me. Rushing ruins foundations. Healthy love requires timing, alignment, and responsibility. It's not about intensity, it's about sustainability. And the same applies to careers, finances, and personal growth. Slow doesn't mean stagnant. Slow means intentional. Lesson 6. Success requires sacrifice people don't see. Being a business owner, a CEO, and a leader, especially in mental health, means constant responsibility. No off switch, no real downtime. What people see is growth. What they don't see is the stress, the decisions, the pressure, and the weight. If you want success, understand this. You will sacrifice comfort before you gain freedom. Lesson 7. Love yourself first, or nothing else works. This is the most important lesson of all. If you don't love yourself, you can't love anyone else. And loving yourself isn't a slogan, it's behavior. Clean your space. Take care of your body. Eat better. Move your body. Protect your peace. Those are acts of self-respect. And self-respect is the foundation of growth. Everything I share from episode 1 through episode 6 leads to this truth. You don't quit. You don't fold. You don't let your past decide your future. You learn, you adjust, and you grow. And now that you understand the journey, that's why episode 7 is about where we are and where we're going. Because survival is one thing, but building a life with intention, that's the real win. And that is the vision for the Untold Truth. Before I sign off, I want to be clear about where the Untold Truth is going. Up until now, you've heard my story, my experiences, my lessons, and that was intentional. But moving forward, the plan is to evolve this podcast. The Untold Truth is going to become a space for real conversations with real people. We'll start bringing on live guests. These will be in-person conversations recorded on video and audio. If you're an audio listener, you'll be able to listen. If you prefer video, you'll be able to watch the conversation unfold. The first guest will be my wife, Brinkley, because she is my woman, she's my partner, and now that I'm married, she's my number one. That conversation matters. From there, we'll bring on others, people from Richmond, people from outside of Richmond. Not celebrities, not influencers, just people with real stories. The goal isn't for anyone to be as open as I am. That's just who I am as a person. I'm very straightforward. I tell the truth. Some people like that, some people don't. And honestly, I don't care who likes it or not. What I care about is the truth being told. I don't want anyone listening to this biography to think that this podcast is about bragging your ego. That's not the purpose. I'm doing this podcast because I know what it feels like to struggle in silence. For a long time, I carried pain without knowing how to cope with it. I thought strength meant keeping everything held inside. I share my story because someone out there is living a chapter that feels impossible right now. And if my experience can help even one person feel less alone, then it's worth it. One of my favorite quotes is, "It takes each one to reach one to teach one." This quote derives from the saying, "Each one, reach one, each one, teach one, until all are taught." This quote is an African proverb originating during slavery in the U.S. to emphasize that when one person learns to read or write, they have a duty to educate another, spreading knowledge for community advancement, especially when education was denied. This quote is a call for mentorship, shared learning, and collective empowerment, suggesting that helping others grow ensures no one is left behind in knowledge. I take what life has given me, and I try to reach one person who needs to hear it. And when that person finds their footing, they can teach the next. This podcast exists to create space for healing, reflection, and growth. To remind people that falling doesn't mean failing, that rebuilding is possible, and that no matter how far you think you've gone, there's always a way forward. This podcast is also therapy for me. It's something outside of my day-to-day work, something that exercises my brain differently. Just like the gym, you can't work the same muscle the same way every day. You have to switch it up or you'll burn out, or even worse, you'll hurt yourself. This is me switching it up. This is me challenging myself, working on my communication and talking skills, which is something I'll be the first to admit I'm not naturally good at. But I believe in growth, and growth requires discomfort. This podcast also creates a safe talking space. As adults, we don't get to see people as much as we used to. Life happens, family happens, kids happen, responsibilities pile up. This is another way to bring people together, intentionally, and actually listen to each other. This is also a mental health practice. Even though my professional work involves people with serious diagnoses such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or other major mental health disabilities, practicing mental health improvement strategies is not just for people who have been clinically diagnosed. People who have never been clinically diagnosed still struggle. They still carry stress, they still carry trauma, and they still need outlets. talking, communicating, going for a walk, or just eating better. Those are things that we train our staff on to relate to our clients, and they're things everyone should be doing. This podcast is one more way to practice that. So as the past 7 chapters of the Untold Truth by Joshua Brinkley comes to an end, the future stories of potential guests will now begin. This is growth, this is honesty, this is connection, and this is the Untold Truth. My name is Joshua Brinkley, and I'm signing off.